everybody, and after a very long time I can finally say welcome back to Eric's Geography Corner. Last week we talked about 5 minutes about measuring disparities, and that was a 3-hour section in the syllabus, and today's topic has about 7 hours allocated to it. So I might have to finish this next week. So today we're going to be talking about hazards and hazard events. So the IB requires us to explain the characteristics and spatial distribution of the following hazards: either earthquakes or volcanoes, hurricanes, droughts, or any one recent human-induced hazard. And we have to distinguish between the chosen hazards in terms of spatial, extent, predictability, frequency, magnitude, duration, speed of onset, and effects. So, first we need to understand what a hazard actually is. Now, we understand commonly that a hazard is anything that poses any kind of danger or risk to us. However, there is an IB definition which is more sophisticated and more accurate for a hazard, and that is a threat, whether natural or human, that has potential to cause loss of life, injury, property damage, socioeconomic disruption, or environmental degradation. It is also important to recognize the distinction between a hazard and a hazard event. A hazard event is the occurrence, realization of a hazard, the effects of which change demographic, economic, and/or environmental conditions. That is another IB definition that you have to know by heart. So hazards have the potential to affect people, while hazard events actually have an impact on people's lives. Not every event is a hazard event. It has to have a negative impact on people and their property to be a hazard event. First, let's talk about hurricanes, tropical cyclones, and typhoons, all different names for the same thing. We have to know that there are 5 million billion tons of air in the atmosphere, and because it has that much mass and it is above us, it is always exerting a downward pressure because of gravity. This is known as an atmospheric pressure, measured usually in kilopascals or millibars. The average pressure at sea level is 1,012 kilopascals. Now, a weather map connects points of equal pressure on a map, forming lines called isobars. On a weather map, a low pressure area looks like a lot of concentric circles with the pressure decreasing towards the middle. This is called a cyclone. On the other hand, a high pressure area looks like a lot of concentric circles with the pressure increasing towards the middle, and this is called an anticyclone. If the low pressure area is very intense and the isobars are very close together, then this would cause strong winds, and that would be called a hurricane, tropical cyclone, or typhoon, depending on where in the world it is located. These intense low-pressure systems with high wind speeds are called tropical cyclones in Australia, typhoons in Asia, and hurricanes in North America. And again, it is important to remember that these are all names for the same thing. Now we know that air flows from a high pressure point to a low pressure point. This is known as wind. And since hurricanes are a low pressure system, that means that wind is traveling from the outside to the middle of the hurricane. Now, it would flow in a straight line. However, the Earth's rotation causes the wind to deflect to one side depending on where it is on the Earth. This is called the Coriolis effect. It diverts air to the right in the northern hemisphere and to the left in the southern hemisphere. This causes hurricanes to rotate counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. Now let's talk about the characteristics of hurricanes. In terms of regularity, they are very regular. In fact, they are the most regular of our hazards that we are talking about. In terms of spatial dispersion, it is concentrated. It has an average speed of onset, as well as an average areal extent, as in area, not air. And it is somewhat short in duration, and it is quite frequent. Thank you very much for watching. That's all we have time for today, but I will continue with the characteristics of hazards next video.